everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Weekly Rankings Podcast. Jeff Erickson here. And I am with Brian Drake from Fantasy Points. You can follow him on Twitter at Drake Fantasy. You can read him and listen to him at Fantasy Points and the Monday podcast he does with John Hansen. That's a good starting point. Just go to his Twitter profile. You can see everything he does. But the primary place is Fantasy Points. But he has the Huddle. There's Fantasy Pros. You're in a lot of places, Brian.
Yeah, my wife during football season doesn't see a lot of me as I hang out in the basement down here with these glaring lights staring me in the face. So it's always good to get up and go for a nice late night walk, and and putting the headphones on, listening to some of these podcasts that you do here at RotoWire. Some of my great friends, I was telling you before we started the show, there, my guy Jimmy Coventry, Joe Bartle. I mean, you got a great crew here, and I'm just so thankful that I get to kind of pinch hit here for a night.
Oh, yeah. And every Wednesday I try to bring in great people in the industry, because that's one of the things about this industry is it's, first of all, it's super deep. Everybody's really kind. I feel like there's not everybody, but obviously almost everybody. And it's not Coke versus Pepsi. There's just a lot of good voices, and I try to get a sampling of those. And I've met so many good friends throughout the industry. So I'm happy to do these sort of things. That's why I have the outside guest podcast every week here on Wednesdays. And I love doing that there. So let's jump in. I want to start off with a matchup I haven't jumped into a ton because I knew I was going to ask you about that. And that's Eagles and the Vikings. Vikings coming off the bye week. We don't know who their quarterback's going to be this week. Eagles coming off a terrible Thursday night game, especially a terrible second half on this one. I think there's a lot of confusion about what to expect in this game.
Yeah. I'm so happy you started with this game. I still have my Eagles Super Bowl sweatshirt on, so I'm holding on to that for dear life as this team spirals out of control. And listen, this is not the same team that won the Super Bowl. And a lot of folks, we live in this society now, Jeff, that everyone expects perfection every week. Remember, this team was 2-2 a year ago heading into their week 4 bye. They did not look like a Super Bowl club at all. They're kind of on that path right now. The biggest difference being the offensive line is not doing nearly what it was a year ago.
Right.
And because obviously you have a new guard. Mekhi Becton is with the Chargers, and Tyler Steen is in there. Landon Dickerson is really beat up, and he's in and out of the lineup every week. So it's a constant battle for this Eagles team to get a healthy offensive line out there. And it's just not the same. They're not creating the same holes. And oh, by the way, when you win the Super Bowl, everybody is on you and watching your film and trying to figure out, how do I stop that number 26 guy? He seems pretty good. So, and by the way, the Eagles have a new offensive coordinator who, if you are in Philadelphia next weekend, I will be selling Fire Kevin Patullo shirts out of my trunk in the Link parking lot.
Hustle economy and fantasy, by the way, folks. There you go.
Yeah. You know what it is? This is a team without an identity. It's because you have a first-time play caller in Patullo who's running this very antiquated Nick Sirianni offense, who every time the Sirianni offense has been employed in Philadelphia, it has not worked. When he first got there and he was calling plays for a hot second, it didn't work. He had to give up the play calling to Shane Steichen. Then Steichen gets hired, and they bring in Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson starts running that same offense. Terrible. It doesn't work. They can him. Bring in Kellen Moore. Oh, it's great. We win the Super Bowl. Kellen Moore gets hired away. Now it's back because Patullo is just a yes man, Sirianni buddy from way back. He gets the gig, and he's never called plays in his life. But anyways, back to this game. The issue here is going to be Brian Flores is a hell of a coordinator, and you're going to have Minnesota, who runs too high safety at the highest rate of any team in the league, taking away what the Eagles want to do, and that's matriculate the ball down the field to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I think Smith can have a better game, but especially when the Eagles get zoned up, they have a big problem. There's a great clip from early in the year. It's at flight night when Devontae Smith is talking to Vic Fangio on the sideline, and he goes, "Vic, don't run zone so I can actually do something in front of the fans." I got to find the video. The Eagles tweeted it out back in the day, but that's their issue. It's not the blitz. It's not what's Jalen Hurts saying. They're struggling against zone incredibly because they're just not scheming things up very well. So I think this is a game, though, where if you can get Saquon Barkley working on the outside, a lot of over pursuit from this Minnesota Vikings defense, I think he can get going a little bit. And Dallas Goedert, who we've seen come on the last 2 weeks, I think can eat underneath. We saw what the Browns did a couple of weeks ago against this team with Fannin and Njoku, and they had a great success against this Minnesota Vikings defense. So I think this could be another underneath kind of Goddard game. and the Eagles just do enough to win because I don't trust Wentz, or if we do get JJ McCarthy back. I think with a healthy Jalen Carter, it seems like he's going to play. It seems like Quinyon Mitchell's going to play. The Eagles should have enough bodies in this game.
Well, and that's the thing. The Jalen Carter thing's kind of snuck up on people, I think, last week. That it was bad enough to keep him out and how impactful that would be. And it shouldn't have surprised us how impactful it was going to be because we saw week 1 against the Cowboys. We saw as soon as Carter got ejected after the first play, Dallas was able to run easily against them. And we didn't expect that to be able to happen. We know how much attrition the Cowboys offensive line had, and yet they were able to run the ball so readily. And then we saw last week with the Giants how readily they were able to run the ball. And it's night and day difference. And then, of course, they had a key injury in the secondary as well. And that doesn't help either there. In-game injuries are always tough to adjust to.
Yeah, and in Philadelphia doesn't have the depth, especially along the defensive line or at edge. I mean, just this week, Zadarius Smith up and retired. They're going to have 4 healthy edge rushers in this game. So it wouldn't shock me if first-round pick Jahad Campbell, who's playing linebacker for the Eagles, moves over and starts playing a little more edge. Because he could kind of be a Micah Parsons type player. That's what people thought of when he was coming out. So I could see the Eagles doing a little more of that because, frankly, they just don't have the bodies, Jeff.
Yeah, they don't. And I don't know if they're going to be able to get them at the trade deadline this year. We do see edge rushers get dealt at the trade deadline. That's happened before. And obviously, we know Philly is always ready to pull the trigger. If there's a way to improve the club, they can. Maybe they've stockpiled enough picks, but we'll see. I mean, I know they'll be active.
Can Tank Dell play edge? I mean, he's not doing anything returning kicks. Good Lord.
Yeah. That was a perplexing deal at the time.
So stupid.
Yeah. But hey, it's just proof though, that everything works. Even the best GMs have their misses. We saw that last year actually too. I mean, look, it's so funny. Like, Zach, they didn't expect Zach Bond to work out as well as it did. That was kind of the throwaway signing. Instead, it was like, they had the edge rusher that they signed from the Jets. That didn't work out at all. Yeah.
And that goes into the depth. Bryce Huff, who is, are already off the team, that went into their plans of, okay, well, Bryce Huff is going to be one of your edge players going forward. And now he's not, and he's not there. So, it takes a minute to account for this roster churn and with players getting hurt. I mean, you're down Brandon Graham, you're down Josh Sweat. Now Zadarius Smith, just, he was kind of in and out playing hokey pokey with the lineup. So it's tough for Philadelphia, but I think as the season goes on, they'll make a trade. They got to get an edge. They got to get a corner. You can't run out of Dory Jackson and Keely Ringo. You and I could go for $120 on these two guys in our sleep. So Howie will do something to upgrade those 2 positions, I would say.
Yeah, and giving Brian Flores on the offensive side of it all, giving Brian Flores 2 weeks to prep for this game is kind of scary, especially if if they can't figure out the line issues there. And I know, I'm sorry, blanking on the name, Logan Dickerson, the left guard is missing the game like he did against the Giants. And he's been hurt all year too.
He's a guy the Eagles are going to have to account for in the offseason. He's had something like 9 different surgeries since college. He's just always beat up. So they're going to have to find a way to get a replacement for him. And also, their center's undersized, and that didn't bother them when it was Jason Kelce, excuse me. But, it's not Jason Kelce, and Steen isn't Becton. It's just, there's a lot of things happening in Philadelphia. And by the way, they're also very, very predictable. It's something Lane Johnson talked about after the game last week was this team is too predictable. Everyone can call out the plays we're going to run. They lead the league in 3 and outs. And it's just a time where they have to use these weapons in a way that's not so predictable. Let's get some more motion pre-snap. Let's move people around. Get the defense kind of on their heels because it's very stagnant. We're going to have guys just standing there running the same 3 routes every day. And that's why they've lost 2 games in a row.
And see, also offensive coordinator in 4 OCs in 4 years. I mean, it's tough to have that sort of lack of continuity. And it's especially tough when, like you alluded to, they have an offensive coordinator that hasn't called plays before. So
Mike McDaniel, 2 weeks from now, I'm calling it. Mike McDaniel, OC in Philadelphia.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing in a lot of different ways. Finally, on the Minnesota side of things, a lot of confusion here. Like, is it going to be McCarthy? Is it going to be Wentz? Neither. It seems like it'll probably be one of the 2, but you never know. Injury reports being what they are, and the teams making sure to tell us as less as they possibly can. So something to watch for there a little bit there. Meanwhile, still no Aaron Jones. It's going to be another week of Jordan Mason. What can Mason do? I think it's with Carter, without Carter, I think is a big part of that equation there. If without Carter, I really like Jordan Mason this week. With Carter, I don't.
Yeah, and it also happens to be the Eagles need to get out and score. They need to put Minnesota in chase mode so that it's not just Mason kind of grinding out the clock. You want to put him more of a role where I know he doesn't like to go out and catch very many passes, but if you can keep him off the field and put them in a situation where Carson Wentz now has the ball in his hand and he has to drop back 40 times in the game, that's advantage Philadelphia. If Carson Wentz only has to throw the ball 20 times in this game, now we're in trouble because it means you're probably controlling the clock and Mason's going to get probably upwards of 15, 20 carries and, time of possession is going to be in the Vikings' favor. So in order to limit Jordan Mason, the Eagles offense has to do that, not as much just the defense.
Right. Exactly. All right. We're going to talk other quarterbacks. I'm glad we got to dive into Minnesota, Philly there a little bit there. But first, quick note from our friends over at Circa. It's football season, and the best place to catch the games is at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, featuring the best pool in history, Stadium Swim. Stadium Swim has 3 levels, 6 pools, and a 143-foot diagonal screen. Whether it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, Stadium Swim is in America's favorite place to watch football. No matter the size of your group, Stadium Swim is the place for you. From owner's suites to cabanas, day beds to stadium booths, there are seating choices for everyone. And the best part, Stadium Swim is open 365 days a year. With temperature-controlled pools, it's a great place to catch the games all season long. Stadium Swim, located at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Book today at circalasvegas.com. I'm here with Brian Drake. You can follow him on Twitter at Drake Fantasy. Brian, let's talk a little bit about the quarterbacks here. Lots to talk about. I wanted to highlight Baker Mayfield. It's the matchup of a team with no healthy receivers versus against a team that has no healthy DBs. How does this play out?
You can't bet against Baker Mayfield at this point. It doesn't matter who he's got bet there. I made the joke that you and I could go and make our way against the Eagles corners. It's kind of like that right now against Detroit. Detroit giving up the 7th most points to opposing quarterbacks on the season. They just gave up 3 touchdowns and 257 yards to Patrick Mahomes, and he ran for a touchdown. So this is back-to-back weeks now where they've given up 3 passing touchdowns. And one of those was Jake freaking Browning, of all things. So you can throw on Detroit. And it has all the makings of a track meet. It comes down to what receiver do you like? Do you like this Tez Johnson, who's my size? He's 5'11", $145, or it doesn't matter. I like Sterling Shepard, I think, the most out of all those guys, or Cade Otton. But I'm not docking Baker Mayfield at all. He's going to run. He's shown it the last few weeks. He's got the ability to escape, and he's probably going to throw for 250 yards. You look what he's done on the season. He doesn't have a week outside of the top 15. And of his last 4 games, they're all within the top 11. So I love Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to have another great week. This has, 44-40 written all over it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is I can't wait to see this here. And the Baker scrambles. I mean, every week he's got that one outrageous scramble. Had one against Philly. He had a couple against Seattle. Had one last week against the Niners. There he was shucking tackles. It's amazing to watch that there. I'll make the joke. Which Johnson do you prefer? Agent Johnson or Special Agent Johnson? No relation. But it just Tez Johnson versus Cameron Johnson. Do you have a preference between the two?
I mean, geez Louise, Tez Johnson, who it seems everybody is in love with, caught 1 pass last week. So it's hard for me to really get behind him. But, it's one of these situations where someone's got to go out there and catch the ball. I'm looking at their routes from last week. The reason everyone's so high on Tez Johnson is because he ran the most routes on the team. He had 84% of the routes.
Right.
So that's why people like him. Again, I lean a little more towards Sterling Shepard.
I like that too.
He's got the familiarity with Baker Mayfield. He can operate in the middle of the field. But I actually tweeted this out. I said this about Cade Otton and about Kraft or Higbee in Los Angeles. Is the answer to who's going to fill in for this week's injured wide receiver might not be wide receiver. It might be the tight end.
Agreed.
I think Cade Otton, who's available in a boatload of fantasy leagues right now, like I would go out if you're, maybe you're missing Brock Bowers or you're kind of streaming tight ends week to week, go out there and pick up Cade Otton. I think he can easily get you 12, 15 points in a PPR.
I agree. In fact, Waylon and I talked about it on SiriusXM today that use Otton in your flex. I'm definitely down with that. I think that's definitely a thing you can do there. With Higbee, I'm less convinced because they've got other tight ends. They might work Ferguson in a little bit more. They did a jet sweep to Ferguson last week. That was a bonkers play. I don't know if that's I think they can tear that page out of the playbook, but
they loved him in the pre-draft process. Remember the videos of them going bananas when they drafted him? And of course they barely use the guy, but because
that's the Rams though too. That's how they do. It's just like, hey, we would love to have a great tight end. Draft a decent tight end. Don't use them. It's just that's just a McVay thing. I just checked. Otton is 27% rostered on Yahoo.
Between Otton, Higbee, and Aronde Gadsden, shout out to a Syracuse guy. Like you can find playable guys on the waiver, and
all season it's been that way too.
Yeah, and Theo Johnson and Mason Taylor, who were the darlings of a week ago, they were total duds. So everyone went and dropped them. When now this week, Mason Taylor, with nobody to throw to for the Jets, is probably going to catch 9 balls.
Yep. And Taylor delivered the first week he got picked up. It was just last week that it was the total dud because everybody was a total dud in that game. Worst London game ever. And that's saying a lot because we specialize in exporting bad games to London. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't changed their official language to French or something because of that. Because it's just try to kind of, let's send us a different sport next time, wouldn't you? But that was such a bad game. I dragged my butt out of bed at 5 a.m. to update the rankings, answer questions, and watch that dog of a game. I'm not bitter at all.
At least I'm on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. I did the Pat Mayo thing, live stream on Sunday night, and they had those guys are in Nova Scotia. So they're even they're at 10:30 their time for that London game, which is even better. But
this week on Monday, we've got a 10 p.m. Monday nighter.
This is my payback.
East Coast dads are in for it this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, tough sacrifice there for the job, but it's going to make Tuesday morning really painful, but absolutely. All right, let's move on because I got a lot of guys on the list. And I don't want to.
I talk too much. You get 2 hosts on here. And we just start.
I know, right?
Yammering.
Matthew Stafford was in my top 5 last week. Mea culpa, because my gosh. He definitely underperformed. And yes, they lost Puka, but it was more than that. Even before the Puka injury, it was kind of a slog of a game. And they had a flurry in the third quarter, but this was a tough game. Now, probably not going to have Puka this week against the Jaguars. What are you doing with Matthew Stafford this week?
You can't fault yourself for why you played Matthew Stafford a week ago. They were going against Baltimore. Everybody on Baltimore is hurt, and he was coming off 2 straight weeks where he was a top 10 quarterback, top 8 really, quarterback. So the process was right, but that's fantasy football. It's just sometimes it doesn't happen. Now, going up against Jacksonville this week, I'm just reading. We were just talking about the Lions, and Shefty just reported that I think Brian Branch's suspension is upheld. But
there's a shock.
Yeah. So you're going up against a Jacksonville defense who's sneaky good. I write a streaming defense article at Fantasy Points, and one of the teams I've been touting early in the season is Jacksonville. And they're not allowing a ton of offensive production through the air. Now, it could be the tides could be turning a little bit. Darnold got him for 295 and 2 a week ago. Mahomes threw for over 300 yards on him. So I don't want to say that Stafford can't do it, but this is what happens when Matthew Stafford is your quarterback is you look at some of these matchups and you're like, where's the upside? If Stafford doesn't throw for 303, you can't survive because he can't he can't beat what Jaxson Dart can do, throwing for 150 yards because Jaxson Dart's going to run for 70 to touchdown. That's why I just rather not have a guy like Matt Stafford as my quarterback.
The Rams-Eagles game where he tried to scramble on 3rd and 2 and just got run down by a defensive tackle. And it wasn't close. It was like, oh, Matthew. The problem is he can readily throw for 300. He's got that type of arm and he's got that belief in his arm. That's why I was really shocked at the result of that game. I think he and Adams will have big games. I think Adams will at least have a big game in this one here against the Jags, but you're right. It might be where it's Jacksonville sneaky. They may, they might be missing some people on defense too. They've got their own injury woes there, something to check out as well.
Matthew Stafford last week, last thing on him, threw for 389 and 3 and was only quarterback 8.
Yeah, that's right. And then we'll leave aside that 4th down overtime call where they run into the pile against the Niners when that's the one thing they could stop the entire night. But anyways, let's move on because I want to talk a little bit about Bo Nix. I am the low man on Bo Nix going into the season, or a low man, because it's a wide industry, and I'm sure there are other people that were on this. Don't want to claim total victory here, but they don't trust him. They just don't trust Bo. The Broncos don't trust him. That game against the Jets where, the Jets looked like a Power 4 conference defense the week before at best. There's a sequence in the third quarter. It's 3rd and 10, and they hand it off to Jaleel McLaughlin. I mean, it was the ultimate give-up play. And it's just they don't trust Nix when there's under any semblance of pressure. And the Giants, one thing they're good at doing is pressuring the quarterback. I'm worried about Nix.
That's one of the best offensive or defensive lines in the league.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic defense. We have a stat over here at Fantasy Points Data. Fantasy points per drop back, and we have one fantasy points per drop back with designed runs. So we know Bo Nix can run a little bit, right?
Yep.
You would think he's going to be really high on this list. So every fantasy point, per drop back, we're going to throw the runs in there. How does he shake out? He's behind Tua, Justin Herbert. He's behind Stafford. He's 23rd on the list at 0.42 fantasy points per drop back with rushing attempts included in that. That's terrible. If you take the rushing out of it, he only goes up to 21st. But to me, this is a case of, like you said, they don't trust him. He doesn't have any weapons. This offense stinks. Your best weapon is an aging Cortland Sutton and one leg J.K. Dobbins. What are we doing here with this team? Can we get some firepower for them? I think that's what we're going to see with Drake May. Is they know what they're sitting on in New England, and they're like, let's surround this guy. They're probably going to trade for Jacoby Myers or Olave, or somebody's going to go there.
Yep,
that's what Denver needs to do. Enough of this Troy Franklin or. I have a little Jordan Humphrey still on the team, or maybe his cousin, big Jordan Humphrey's on the team. It doesn't matter. Like, they're always terrible at wide receiver outside of Cortland Sutton.
They've tried kind of. I mean, Franklin was a try. I mean, they went, reached for Bryant this year. They also, they signed Ingram at tight end and then, found ways to go out of their way not to use him.
You got to get Nate Atkins the ball. I mean, that's
absolutely.
The problem with McVay, not McVay, excuse me. With Sean Payton is they're going to spread it around so much. He's the smartest guy in the room, and he's got to show it to you every single week.
Yeah. Look at the usage of RJ Harvey for that matter. It's the same sort of thing. We're all waiting to see more of that. And it's nothing against Dobbins. He's actually been fine. And I expect Dobbins will be the one guy you can count on this week against the Giants, because I think you can run against the Giants. But it's been really aggravating, to say the least. Opposite side of the game, Jaxson Dart.
Oh, love me some Jaxson Dart.
Everybody loves themselves some Jaxson Dart. The only thing I worry about is I think Denver is going to be the first team, the first team to really pressure him. And I want to see him under pressure, because I think, obviously Denver 30 sacks on the year, many other pressures, good corners. They're going to find ways to kind of clog up those rushing lanes, I think, better than other teams did. I'm curious to see what happens, especially on the road like this. Yeah.
I mean, listen, Jaxson Dart gets it done with his legs. He's got 167 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. I heard a great stat. I can't say that I take credit for this, but like, there's only 2 quarterbacks that have ever started a season, their career with 150 yards rushing, and it's like Lamar and Jalen Hurts, and now the third being Jaxson Dart. So
that's a big stat.
You look at fantasy points per drop back. Again, we just mentioned that stat and how low Bo Nix was. Jaxson Dart is top 10 in the NFL in just 5 games played. So Jaxson Dart is a guy who we love for fantasy because he gets the most out of his teammates. They love him. They want to play for him. And it's that ability with his legs. Anytime you can get a quarterback that can do anything with his feet, that's the guy you're going to draft. I made a prediction a week ago. I was on a show for the FFPC. We were kind of previewing the games and all that. And I said Jaxson Dart's going to be like the 5th quarterback drafted next year. And the host couldn't believe it. But I'm like, listen, when he's going to be the last running quarterback, Jaden Daniels is going to go, and then, Hurts, and then people are going to go, all right, you wait around or so. And then there's going to be Jaxson Dart. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, it might. It very well might. And the thing is, he's actually thrown as Uncle Ted pointed out in the forum here, he threw deep balls last week. All along my scouting report was, I don't think he can throw a deep ball. We saw the flea flicker against the Saints where he left it hanging and dry. Well, he was a lot better last week. And maybe it's just a matter of targeting Ringo. Maybe it was the Adoree Jackson, something like that.
Exactly. He, to me, always kind of has this look, though, Jaxson Dart, of a deer in the headlights when he drops back. Like, I got to dig more into the data here and see how he does on first reads. Because if you remember watching him when he did the Gruden quarterback school, and Gruden's like, what's your cadence? And he just clapped, because that was their offense. It was look to the side, see what Lane Kiffin drew up for you. And then that's the play that you run. It's just, all right, I'm throwing the slant to this guy, go. And if it's not there, take off. So I've noticed that with him a little bit, is he loves to favor that short underneath route to the right, to his right, going to the sideline. They throw that all the time, whether it's to Theo Johnson or to Wandale or whatever other scrub they have running around out there. So see if they can mix up, because teams are going to get tape on him and they're going to figure out, like, wow, this guy really only loves one throw.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think that's going to be something that we're going to see, that push and pull. He'll have to do the counter adjustment, then teams will adjust to the adjustment, and we'll see how that goes. It's the usual give and take. More films out there. But that was always the criticism going into the draft, is like, hey, he was great in a Lane Kiffin offense because Kiffin just diagrammed it to the hilt.
Yeah.
It worked. And it was against college defenses too. So that's obviously a little bit different also. But so far, so good. I am definitely duly impressed. I'm also very low on ownership of him because I had those doubts going into the season too. So there's that also. All right, let's talk a little bit of MegaSports Progressive. Elevate your game with the ultimate sports contest, MegaSports Progressive. Dive into a world of excitement with 3 progressive jackpots and a chance to win big every week and every month. We're rewarding 1,500 lucky winners, distributing over $50,000 in monthly prizes. All you do is answer 15 daily sports props. Add up your correct responses for the week's cash prizes and tally the week's totals for huge monthly cash rewards. MegaSports Pro makes it fun and easy to join. This is a thrilling opportunity to be part of our growing community of sports enthusiasts. Sign up today and unlock a chance to win big every day, every week, and every month. Sign up is free, no commitments, no credit cards. Your first 9 days of play are free. Visit megasportspro.com today. Jeff Erickson here with Brian Drake on the RotoWire Weekly Rankings podcast. Let's talk running backs, Brian. We got a lot to talk about here as well. Javonte Williams coming off his worst week of the season, 13 for 29 against the Carolina Panthers, have all of a sudden learned how to stop running games. They did the same to Devon Achane the week before. Does he bounce back this week against the Commanders?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a guy I have implored people to go out and trade for this week because, again, folks, who else are they giving the ball to? They're not giving it to Jaden Blue and his blisters on his feet and whatever. Miles Sanders is done. You got Hunter Lipke, their fullback. He's the only game in town. And that's what we are so hungry for in fantasy football, is that bell cow. And we don't get it very often because so many teams are dividing up their backfield. Dallas isn't. So, okay, they have a bad game. That's fantasy. Go out this week and buy Javonte Williams. The guy last week, 72% of the rush attempts. He's playing 85% of the snaps. I mean, what more can we ask for? Yeah, I'm in. I love Javonte. Is he talented? Not really anymore, but Uncle Rico.
But more than he was with Denver. He's healthier now than he's ever been.
That's the key.
Yep.
And they can scheme it up. We love to make fun of Dallas. They're doing a great job, Schottenheimer, with that offense.
Seriously.
Ball's going everywhere. Dak looks like an MVP candidate. George Pickens back from the dead. And this offense, I mean, they're never going to stop anybody on defense, but let's attack that and get these guys on our team because every game's a shootout.
Half the team is extremely well coached. I will say that. And I mocked the process with hiring Schottenheimer. I think it was terrible. But
me too.
Here we are. And he actually looked, he's an adult at least, he's a real coach. So I'll give him that. And the coordinator is doing a heck of a job. I think that they've designed running plays with half a healthy offensive line. That's the thing I'm really impressed with this, because this is not the offensive line of previous ages. This isn't the line that Zeke got to run behind. This is
right. It's beat up.
It's beat up big time, and they're still producing, except for last week on the ground. But then Dak is playing out of his mind. So
I mean, he's the RB5 on the season in PPR. Who would have thought that when you were drafting him in the 10th round 6 weeks ago?
Yep. We won't say anything about Matt Eberflus because we're trying to be nice people here. So we'll move on and not talk about the Dallas defense. Let's talk a little bit about the Seattle Seahawks playing Monday night against Houston. I have such a hard time handicapping Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. There are weeks where Walker looks like he is so good, and there's other weeks where he can't get going at all. Charbonnet was really good at running into the pile last week. I could not believe that goal line sequence on their first red zone drive last week against Jacksonville. If they had lost that game, I would have been pointing to that. They had 3 straight runs from like the 5 or 6 when they the third time was probably not a charm. They probably should have at least tried to put the ball in the hand of Sam Darnold, see what they could do. But what are you doing with Walker? What are you doing with Charbonnet?
I owned Kenneth Walker in my biggest league. This is all my old frat buddies. Shout out Sigma Alpha Epsilon at SUNY Oswego. So I had Ken Walker, and I think it was like week 2 or 3. I'm looking at the utilization, and I'm seeing that they take him out at the goal line every week. He's not playing any 2-minute. He's not playing any long down and distance. I'm like, uh-oh. We talked this offense up so much in the preseason about they're going to run the ball down everyone's throat for 200 yards and this and that. And then now they're throwing the ball on everybody. I traded Ken Walker. I got out of the Ken Walker business. I got in a deal to get Bucky Irving and Rachaad White back, thankfully. But listen, folks, if you have him, let's look at the last 2 weeks. Ken Walker's playing on 38% of the snaps. Charbonnet, 59%. It's almost a 50-50 split in terms of the rushing attempts. But the reason Charbonnet is more valuable at this point is because on the long down and distance, 82% of snaps. And then 2 minutes, 100% of the snaps. Goal line, he's in there as well. He has 75% of all the rushes inside the 5. Shout out to my buddy Dwayne McFarland and his utilization report for that nugget. But, I mean, you can't be happy with Ken Walker now. You're praying he has a good week and scores a touchdown.
Right.
He's been like that in the past where, he'll break off a 30-yard touchdown because he's getting nothing at the goal line. Trade him immediately. Work out a deal during the game, if you can, with one of your league mates and get rid of Walker because it's going to be maddening all season. We just talked about Javonte, who owns the whole backfield. This is a backfield that's a 50-50 split. That's not what we want in fantasy.
No, agreed. And I'm not entirely sold on this offensive line being a good run blocking line to begin with. They did it against the Steelers. The week 2 thing is the thing that is like the outlier where Walker ran crazy in the second half there. That third and goal from the 19 where he went in untouched. I think that was just the Steelers.
I think that's after I traded him. See ya. That's what I needed.
Yep, absolutely there. So yeah, I've got and Charbonnet. I don't even feel like I could use him as a flex this week either. I mean, I think I just want it's a stay away for me for both these guys.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where if you can package them together, you got Ken Walker and maybe you got, I don't know, a Jordan Addison or somebody on your team. And you're like, all right, I don't really need these 2 guys. Let's push the chips in and see if we can go get somebody a little bit better.
Indeed. Let's talk about the Steelers, another team where the usage is going to be confounding all season long. It feels like Jaylen Warren got 63% of the snaps, but none in the fourth quarter. Maybe it's just because they're comfortably ahead of the Browns and it's his first game back. But, we've seen Gainwell play a role, even before the injury. Gainwell is kind of cutting in every once in a while. And Caleb Johnson seems back from the dead, although just barely back. It's a kind of a toe hold. This should be a good matchup against the Bengals. And I think I would start Warren, but I have that nagging doubt.
Yeah, let me see. How do the Bengals rate against running backs? Oh, they give up the most points to opposing running backs.
Right.
So that's why we're talking about them. Yeah, listen, I love Jaylen Warren. I drafted him on a ton of teams, but let's not mince words here. Jaylen Warren is not a feature back. He's not a foundational back that a team should be planning their offense around. The reason they drafted Caleb Johnson is because they thought he was going to be a 1-for-1 replacement for Najee Harris. And that hasn't turned out to be the case, whether it's just him being a rookie or, he's fumbling, he's not practicing well, whatever the case may be, they don't want to play Caleb Johnson. So enter former Eagle Kenny Gainwell, who really is kind of just Jaylen Warren in a different uniform. But if I'm going to play one of these guys, I think I'm still going to play Warren. They trust him. He's going to play a little bit more snaps. He can catch the football. And the bottom line of either of these guys, Jeff, Aaron Rodgers trusts these guys in pass protection. That's why they're there. That's why they're on the field. So, listen, am I excited about 8 points a week out of Jaylen Warren? No. But if I need him in a pinch as a flex, fine. I'll take it because in the weeks he scores, he's going to get your 15 and you'll be happy about it.
Yeah. Just a reminder, though, they play on Thursday night this week, folks. If you do have Jaylen Warren and starting him, put him in your running back spot. Keep that flex spot as open as late as possible, that in case you get the late scratches, because they do happen. We've seen it a number of times lately. All right. Before we move on to wide receivers, quick note from our friends at Chalkboard. Cash in on your NFL picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players get $20 free with no deposit required. Yes, you heard that right. $20 free just on sign up. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports. It's now available in 30-plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTONFL. That's ROTONFL to get $20 free with no deposit required. Thank you to Chalkboard for their sponsorship. We're also on the BlueWire network. Here are their ads. And we're back. Thank you, everybody who is paused for us there on the stream.
That's a professional read right there, brother. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that there. You do 20 years of reads, you get somewhat proficient on them sometimes. Let's talk wide receivers. Rashee Rice comes back this week. Big shakeup there for our rankings. Big shakeup for the playing time in Kansas City.
Oh, yeah. And, it shouldn't be a question, folks. If you think, well, I've been sitting on Rashee Rice. Should he go into my lineup? Yeah, absolutely. He should go into your lineup, and he should never leave at this point. I mean, Rashee Rice, I got to see where we've got him ranked at fantasy points this week for wide receiver. It's got to be within the top 12. Let's see. Rashee Rice, 11th. Yep, I knew it.
Yep. Now, and I'm right there with you on that. I have him on my value meter. I have Rice at, I think, 11, I want to say. Yeah, I've got him at 12. Excuse me. Way off.
And he's not coming off an injury. So, he was there. He played in camp. He's been around. He's been now back practicing with the team for this last week or so. He's going to step right into a role where, again, it's Hollywood Brown, who, okay, he was probably better about 4 years ago. You've got Xavier Worthy, who is just literally like a walking mash unit out there. The guy can barely lift his arm because of the collarbone shoulder injury. And you've got the ghost of Travis Kelce. And this is a team that's throwing the ball more than anybody. They want to push the ball down the field. So all wheels are up for Rashee Rice. I wish I had him on more teams.
100%. 100%. I got some late stashes after the suspension, because then I actually thought that the timing of the suspension and the length was better than I anticipated. So I actually got a bit of a deal. Early on in draft season, he was going 4th round or so. I'll take him in the 6th. No problem.
Yeah, I like getting him, get all this suspension out of the way early. Then remember we were kind of unsure in draft season, like, well, maybe he's going to get suspended for like weeks 4 through 8 or something like that. Like, how would that work out? Because then you're dealing with buys. Exactly. So now, I mean, most of your team probably hasn't even gone through their bye weeks yet. And you got a superstar coming off your bench. I love it. Shout out to all you folks that drafted him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you completely on the timing. I thought that was, and I think it benefited the Chiefs. And in fact, I think that's why they pushed him to agree to accept a deal on that there, instead of trying to go all the way to the hearing after week 4, because, they might've gotten a worse ruling, and, you never know how long it is there. Same thing with, it was interesting to see that Rice and Addison basically got adjudicated legally within a day of each other, 24 hours of each other. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden now we have some certainty when we thought it might drag on for another season. So that worked. It really did work out pretty well for those. And obviously Rice is a higher ceiling than Addison. So what does that do to Xavier Worthy? What does that do to Hollywood Brown? Who loses out on this?
I mean, I think Xavier Worthy, when we look at him and what he's doing, I think he's going to become a wind sprint guy. And just maybe take some deep shots to him, because now you don't have to run him in the middle of the field where he can really get even more injured. Again, he's playing really hurt, guys. Yeah. And I like Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown can work a lot from the inside, and he could play axes. He's a good flanker, if you want to use that term. He could be that guy who can move inside, outside, off the ball. So I like Hollywood Brown. I'm not trying to play either one of those guys, to be honest, if I don't have to, unless I'm in a really deep league. But I think Hollywood Brown can keep some value as just kind of this security blanket when teams start doubling Rice. And nobody cares about Kelce anymore. He's washed. But I still think I would take some shots on Hollywood Brown if I needed to in a super deep league.
Yeah, and you can thank and dismiss Tyquan Thornton. Had no targets even last week, so he was already on the way out. He's going to lose out a lot on the snap share there. Kelce looked less washed than usual the last couple of weeks, but still.
Well, when Taylor Swift starts singing songs about you know what, I mean, put a little pep in your step.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It might do that. Also, facing the Lions secondary might have had something to do with that too, especially when they're so banged up as they were. All right. So we talked to Rice. If you have him, start him. Tet McMillan, you're going to start him too. I actually have one league, Brian, where I'm debating Rice versus McMillan. I mean, it's stupid amount of depth, but it's also one of those where you only have to start 2 receivers and a couple flexes. So it's a little bit different, but Tet McMillan had his best touchdown day, his only touchdown day last week against the Cowboys, a pass funnel. Going up against the Jets, do we expect a reprise? I've been impressed with him so far.
Yeah, and I've gotten a lot of questions from folks of, should I trade Tet? He's not doing anything for me. Tet McMillan and Chris Olave, to me, are the same guy. You're a target hog on a kind of bad team that you haven't scored many touchdowns. And that has been the case with Olave, who has 1 touchdown, and now with Tet McMillan, who luckily has 2 this past week. But once the touchdowns come, Tet McMillan's wide receiver 23. All of a sudden, those touchdowns, those 6 points go boom, 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 boom. He starts rising up the ranks.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, geez, he's like wide receiver 14 on the year. Yeah, if a guy's getting 8-9 targets a week, which he has been outside of last week against Dallas, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for opportunities. He's the number 1 wide receiver, number 1, basically anything outside of Uncle Rico. He's the number 1 guy. Don't drop him. Just be patient. He shouldn't be your number 1, number 2 wide receiver anyways. If he's your number 3, if he's your flex, that's the role he needs to be on your fantasy team going forward. If he's your number 2, that's where the problem lies, because he's miscast in your own roster that you've built.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it might be by force that he's your number 2 now. You might have been a Neighbors guy. You might have been, CD Lamb guy. And all of a sudden everybody moves up a rung in the ladder there. Yeah. And that's unfortunate, but so it goes. You got one recurring issue, and that's you have a short quarterback in Bryce Young. That's always going to be a little limited on his upside and being able to connect with him. I feel like the same way. There's one of the things that's holding Marvin Harrison Jr. back in Arizona too with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the guy's 14th in the NFL in targets among wide receivers.
Yep.
That's not bad.
No, not bad at all.
Eventually the touchdowns will come, and we saw 2 of them last week. He's broken through. Just keep running them out there. I mean, listen, who else are you going to start putting in your lineup? You play Eli Imanor over him every week? I mean, what are we talking about?
Exactly. Kendrick Bourne has had 2 good weeks in a row. Love him. Has he earned a full-on spot in this rotation for the Niners, even when they start getting their injured guys back?
I wonder how long Jawan Jennings has left in a San Francisco uniform. It seems like he's kind of on the outs. He's fighting with Kyle Shanahan on the sideline, and he's really beat up. There's rumors he's playing with broken ribs and all kinds of nonsense. So who knows how long he's going to even be on this football team. But last Sunday, I was doing a TikTok live stream. And I mean, you want to talk about an old boomer like me sitting here on my cell phone on TikTok for fantasy pros. And I'm giving out start sit. And the same questions kept coming up. Kendrick Bourne or this guy, Kendrick Bourne. And I just stopped and I said, guys, pretty much unless the other receiver is Puka Nacua, the answer is going to be Kendrick Bourne. He has incredible chemistry with Mac Jones, who, oh, by the way, made Brian Thomas into a thing. And he's the only guy they have. There's no Kittle. Jennings is playing on one leg. There's no pretty Ricky Pearsall. Yes. And what happened? He goes out and gets another $120. Just keep run. I'm going to run Bourne out there until they take him off the field.
And he's not even over 50% rostered yet. That's the thing that's pretty amazing. You missed out on an opportunity last week. That's for sure. by the way, the Jennings thing, he self-disclosed those broken ribs, and then like the teammates like, why are you even saying that? Like I think they're getting tired of his act a little bit there. Remember the holdout 2 years in a row now.
Yeah, you're not that good.
Right.
Where you can say these things.
So I tend to agree with you. He might be on the way out. We'll see. I mean, the Niners are 4-2. Those wins are booked. They're banked in. You've got 3 wins against the division already too. Beat the Rams, beat the Cardinals, beat the Seahawks. That's, but man, every week they take away. It's like the dark night and the Black Knight and Monty Python Holy Grail there. They keep on cutting off a limb on this defense here. It's crazy how they can survive.
Yeah, I was shocked, to be honest, when I saw the record for the 49ers on the screen. I'm like, they're like, 4-2 now or whatever they are. I'm like, holy smokes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. Are we really doing this here with these guys? And everybody's hurt. Eventually, they're going to get Kittle back. They're going to get Pearsall back. Light a candle, say a prayer. Christian McCaffrey's still on 2 legs. And it seems this week that Brock Purdy is going to start practicing again. So things are looking up in a division that can go either way. I mean, the NFC is wide open this year. So San Francisco, if they can get healthy, can make a run.
Indeed. And there's so many teams that are banged up. So many teams having a season from hell too. Still could happen. Still could very well happen. All right. I got one more wide receiver question to talk about. I was going to talk Raiders. Just be aware that Jacoby Myers might get dealt. I want to talk Matthew Golden though. Over 100 yards from scrimmage last week. First time he's done that. Coming off the bye. The rookie receiver off a bye. Is that a thing? And how much can we bank on that going forward? Or is this just a Bengals thing?
Yeah, listen, Matthew Golden, I know they drafted him in the first round, and they never do that. It's been what was the drought, like 17 years or something like that?
Right.
That they didn't draft someone. Here's the problem. Christian Watson's coming back sooner than later to this team.
Yep.
You've still got Dobbs. I know, Wicks got a little banged up. This is a team that wants to run the football first and foremost. They're not looking to drop back Jordan Love 40 times a game. Not at all. That's not their identity. They want to play defense. They want to run the ball. And Golden, for having that great week, still in week 6, only ran 68% of the routes. Romeo Dobbs smoked him in that department. It's just so happens that he's, making some big plays down the field. So listen, to me, this is a time to sell on a guy like Matthew Golden, because the Green Bay Packers, like, who are we talking about earlier? The Buffalo Bills, for example, they want to spread the ball around to too many people. I can't get excited about my wide receiver in my lineup, knowing that, well, he's not running as many routes as Romeo freaking Dobbs. Okay. Like,
right.
Great. He's a rookie. He's doing fun things out there. He's never going to be an alpha in this offense, because that's not how the offense is designed.
I agree. I agree. And I think that's just a LaFleur sort of thing. It's always going to be how they try to run the offense. I think especially when they have a good enough defense, that they're rarely going to be playing in catch-up mode. They're rarely going to be in an instance there where they're going to ask Jordan Love to throw it 35, 40 times. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, they have the 3rd fewest passing attempts in the league right now, behind Minnesota and Pittsburgh. I mean, teams that had, coming off buys. So yeah, I mean, they don't want to throw the football. They're not Dallas or Cleveland or San Francisco. I mean, can you believe Cleveland is number 1 in pass attempts? And you look at their weapons, you're like, nobody does anything on this team.
Yeah. Oh, just don't get me started on Dylan Gabriel throwing it 52 times and Quinshon Judkins only getting 12 carries.
And every pass goes 0.1 yard.
Yeah, I know. So tough. And none of those to Judkins, by the way, either. Like, what are we even doing?
Fannin week, baby. Get ready. There's another tight end you need.
Well, here we go. I mean, let's just get right into the tight ends here. And I have Fannin on our outline on the show sheet here because, hey, I don't know if David Njoku is going to be able to go. This Cleveland Miami barn burner that we've got coming up here.
Oh God.
Wait, it's all about Judkins, but I think both Fannin and Darren Waller are kind of interesting to talk about.
No question. And listen, we have seen what running backs have done against Miami the last few weeks. I mean,
yes,
Uncle Rico's making a mint based on going against this team. But look at last week, Harold Fannin, 81% of the snaps. We know that Njoku got hurt. 21% target share. It's only going to go up from there. He's a really talented kid. They spent a high draft pick on him for a reason. Finished as the PPR tight end 7. I think he's got a top 5 week in him for sure, because it's who are they throwing to? Judy's questionable right now, and Njoku's probably not going to play. Isaiah Bond's a rookie. They don't really get him very much involved. I'm calling it right here on the RotoWire podcast. 15 targets for Harold Fannin this week.
All right, let's go. In my top 10 in tight end rankings this week for sure. You go all the way back to week 1. They employed Fannin in like 4 different ways. They had him as like a jet sweep. They had him like in the backfield at one point in time, running a route, handing him. I think they handed the ball off to him at one point in time. He was their offense, and that was under Flacco vision. And it's obviously not going to be a whole lot different there. Flacco throws downfield a little bit more, but not a ton more, not anymore, at least. Maybe he will with the Bengals because he actually has receivers to throw to. Fannin does have a case of the dropsies every once in a while. We did see that against Detroit, saw it last week on one play. But still, when you're getting that sort of volume, you don't care as much. Darren Waller's the opposite. You don't get a ton of volume. You don't get a lot of snaps, but he is the red zone guy for Miami.
Yeah, it's funny. I was doing that TikTok live I told you about for Fantasy Pros, and I had a guy in the chat. He goes, "That's it. Waller's dead to me," because he scored with like a minute to go in the game. And then I see it. I announce it live on the stream. I go, "Oh, Darren Waller touchdown." He goes, "Never mind. I take it back. Love Waller." But, he only scored 9 points because it was 2 for 12. But again, this is a team that doesn't have very many options. The target tree is very limited. It's Waddle, it's Achane, it's Waller. So if I'm looking for upside at the tight end position and I can play Darren Waller, I'm going to run him till the wheels fall off.
Yeah, I agree.
Which with him could be very soon.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I mocked it the first place there, like, because the whole sequence this offseason was super weird. Miami's entire offseason was really weird, but the trade away Jonnu Smith as an attachment to the Jalen Ramsey thing and then turn around and sign Waller right away. I was like, okay, that's weird. But you go Miami, you do your thing, and obviously their thing is not working out very well at all.
How is anybody there still employed? What are we doing?
It's been baffling to see. I mean, just look at their roster. You just look at their secondary, and you knew this is not going to work. This is a really bad roster, and that was one of the easier bets of the offseason was the under 8.5 before the Ramsey trade. Went down to 7.5, and I still think that one seems like it's coming. I mean, bold statement there, Jeff. They're 1-5. I'm really going on a limb, but
do they win over 3 games? If you have to bet that right now. Do they 3.5 is the line? You're going over, you're going under?
I'm probably going over just because it's the NFL and even the most downtrodden teams find a way to win, like even when they're not trying to sometimes. See also the Jets a couple of years ago when it cost them Trevor Lawrence, or the Giants last year for that matter. Yeah. Some bad teams can still win games. They play each other, as it turns out. There's a lot of bad teams too. That's just the real problem.
A lot of parity in the NFL for sure. And a lot of bad quarterback play, a lot of bad offensive line play.
Yeah. Really bad. That's one of the things that I'm glad you said that, because there's some that we saw coming forward, like the Bengals. You could see that was going to be a problem. The Texans, you could see, okay, you trade away your one good offensive lineman on a unit that was really bad to begin with. Yeah, the offensive line is going to struggle, but so many others, like there's been major injuries too. All the more reason why, like I point to the Bucs and say they're just a freak of nature there, because they played without a world-class left tackle for the start of the season. They've lost their entire right side of the offensive line, and they're still humming.
Yeah, it's a testament to Baker Mayfield. It's a testament to their coaching staff and their front office for finding capable replacements. And I'm an Eagles guy, so I follow them closer than any other team, and they've always been able to have someone step right in. Last year, Mekhi Becton comes in. The guy was a throwaway tackle that the Jets, wasted a first-round pick on. They bring him in, they turn him into a right guard, and the guy has a huge season and signs a big contract with the Chargers. So, you got to get coached up the right way, and maybe just a lot of these teams don't have great offensive line coaches either.
Agreed. Also say playing next to Lane Johnson probably helps. It makes you look a little bit better as well. In contrast there too. And Kelsey, well, no, not Kelsey last year, obviously. But still, Cam Jurgens is a solid center. It's not like they lost a ton with Jurgens. So yeah, hat tip to Becton for going and getting paid off that 1 year in Philly there too.
I know. I wish we still had him. Oh, I gotta say this, by the way, your pal, Joe Bartle of RotoWire, who he and I are in a league together. We had a live draft here in Syracuse. While I'm on this podcast, makes a trade in the league. Let me get your thoughts on it.
Okay.
He acquired Quentin Johnston, gave away Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah. It's an odd trade.
This league's full of oddballs. Trust me.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about Johnston the rest of the way? He looked great early. He was fighting for balls. Now he's hurt a little bit. Now the offensive line is talk about teams with with offensive line issues.
Yeah.
Maybe they get Alt back this week and that changes things. But
I mean, listen, it's tough to say a guy. You look at his snap share has always been good. It's outside of 1 week, it's always over 80%. I mean, he had weeks 3 and 4 when he was really humming. 87% snaps, 92% snaps when he had some big weeks. He's seeing targets. I mean, he had 2 double-digit target weeks. So it's there. The only way I think he doesn't keep it going is if, the injuries linger, and then this team, because they're so banged up, and we're seeing it now, they're playing more 2 tight end sets where it's Will Dissly will be in line. Oronde Gadsden will then be the receiver going out, the tight end going out into formation. And maybe that keeps him off the field a little bit. And they're playing more McConkey and Keenan Allen. I love Keenan Allen, by the way, but I just worry at some point, like he's old, and does he really slow down and become someone who you're kind of then questioning week to week in a PPR league?
Yeah. We haven't seen the production yet, but Trey Harris got a ton of snaps last week. And I think he's, second round
talented kid.
Yeah. They invested in him. He was the canary in the coal mine for second round picks signing this offseason, because the Chargers had the first camp too. You remember what the guaranteed signing bonus is. He's starting to get more reps. They've got a bye week coming up. We'll see if he gets that bump coming out of the bye week as well.
And nobody owns him in redraft.
Nobody.
He's completely free.
Yep, absolutely. And so we'll see. A lot of interesting parts on this Chargers team there. So we'll see what happens there. Brian, this is awesome. Great stuff. Again, let everybody know where they can hear and read you.
Thank you for the opportunity. RotoWire is an institution in fantasy sports, not only football, but baseball. My son was checking out the baseball content. He's a huge baseball guy. I know he's watching the ALCS upstairs tonight. He's crushed. The Yankees aren't in it, but he's enjoying it. So thank you for having me here. Check me out on Twitter or Blue Sky at Drake Fantasy. I'm on TikTok at Drake Fantasy, Instagram, wherever you can find somebody on a social media platform. Just put Drake Fantasy. I'm probably there. But yeah, the Fantasy Points podcast with John Hansen drops every Monday. That's a really, really fun time. And then if you go to my Twitter feed, you can find my articles that I do for Fantasy Points, Sports Kita, The Huddle. I did a great article I'd love you guys to read on The Huddle a week ago about a friend of mine who was in a fantasy league. He was a sports broadcaster, passed away, and how the league kind of responded 20 years since his passing. So it got like 500,000 views in 2 days on Reddit. So that was fun to see, and a great way to celebrate his birthday weekend. So if you could do one thing for me, just go check that article out.
Yep. And then also check out his article if you can, the one that got you the FSWA award for writing about getting your son into fantasy as well. Some good stuff there.
Thank you. That was a good time. That was learning to lose. And I think it's something that children and adults, frankly, need to be more mindful of. And it was learning to lose with the Eagles losing the Super Bowl, but also him playing fantasy football for the first time and learning how to cope with losses, and, your friends at school busting your stones about it. And there's some good lessons in there that I think a lot of people could learn from. And I'm very thankful for, the FSWA and the great work that they do, that they recognize that article. And, that was always a dream of mine getting into this. It was to win an FSWA, where I always wanted podcast of the year for the fantasy football hustle I did with Dwayne McFarland for 5 years. We got nominated one time. Yeah. And we lost. I think it was like the fantasy footballers, like anyone's ever heard of them. But what have they ever done? Yeah. But no, it's
wish they had a decent name. You could remember their name or something like that. But,
seriously. But that's the thing with it. When we started that podcast, we were called the Tuesday Night Hustle because we were all about the waiver wire. And then I think somebody told us, like, hey, dummies, like, you need to have the words fantasy football maybe like in your name so that people can search it out. We're like, that's a good idea. Now we're the fantasy football hustle.
There you go.
So we did that for 5 years. So shout out to Dwayne. He's killing it at Fantasy Life.
Yeah, he does really awesome work. They do great work as well. Again, so many people are really good at their jobs in this community there. Again, friendly competition. It's a community, and I want it to remain that way. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Really had a good time with this one. Thanks everybody for tuning in as always. And again, check out RotoWire, code YouTube15 gets you 15% off any RotoWire subscription. You can see all my rankings there on the RotoWire Value Meter. Good luck in week 7. Hopefully lucky 7s come up for you. Take care.